Hello students. So in the previous class we have discussed about the pyramids, different types of pyramids we have come across, like the pyramid of number, pyramid of biomass, and also the pyramid of energy. So, and also we have studied about various aspects related to that energy pyramid, like different trophic levels, how the organisms vary from one trophic level to another trophic level, right? How they are correlated, maybe with respect to biomass, maybe with respect to number, maybe with respect to energy, right? So all these things we have considered, and also the food chain that exists in any pyramid, right? So whether the pyramid is upright or it is inverted, right? If it is upright, why it is upright? If it is inverted, why it is inverted, right? In what cases, how it will be, and also the limitations of these ecological pyramids we have studied in the previous class. In today's session, we are going to study, as I had told you in the previous class itself, a very interesting and most important topic in the whole of ecology called ecological succession. See, ecological succession anta helidre, ecological refers to, of course, related to ecology. Succession anta helidre enirbodu? Succession means what? Successor anta. It's a common English term. Succession means the one which comes next. Right? Succession means it's a sequence of events, it may be, or sequence of many people who come one after the other, maybe one generation after the other. Successors. ಅಲ್ವಾ, ನೀವು ಸೋಷಿಯಲ್ ಸ್ಟಡೀಸ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಎಲ್ಲ ಕಲ್ತಿರ್ಬೋದೇನೋ ಅಲ್ವಾ, ದ ಸಕ್ಸೆಸರ್ ಆಫ್ ದಿಸ್ ಕಿಂಗ್ ಅಂತ ಎಲ್ಲ ಓದಿರ್ತೀರಿ, ರೈಟ್? ಸೊ ಸಕ್ಸೆಷನ್ ಮೀನ್ಸ್, ಎಕಲಾಜಿಕಲ್ ಸಕ್ಸೆಷನ್ ಮೀನ್ಸ್ ವಾಟ್ ಸಕ್ಸೀಡ್ಸ್ an ecosystem, or maybe what succeeds a community of organisms in the next forthcoming generation. That is what is called as ecological succession. So in order to understand this, we need to study ecological succession in depth. So basically, just to have an outset of understanding of ecological succession, it is just the sequential events where different sets of organisms, maybe the plants and also the animals correlated with those plants, they keep on changing in a particular habitat. ಅಂದರೆ ಒಂದು ಪರ್ಟಿಕ್ಯುಲರ್ ಹ್ಯಾಬಿಟಟ್ ಇದೆ, ಆ ಒಂದು ಹ್ಯಾಬಿಟಟ್ನಲ್ಲಿ ಈಗ ಸದ್ಯಕ್ಕೆ ಒಂದು ಪಾಂಡ್ ಇರ್ಬೋದು, ಅಥವಾ ಒಂದು ಮರುಭೂಮಿ ಇರ್ಬೋದು, ಒಂದು ಡೆಸರ್ಟ್ ಇರ್ಬೋದು, ರೈಟ್? ಮೇ ಬಿ ಆಫ್ಟರ್ ಹಂಡ್ರೆಡ್ಸ್ ಆಫ್ ಇಯರ್ಸ್, ಸೆವೆರಲ್ ಹಂಡ್ರೆಡ್ಸ್ ಆಫ್ ಇಯರ್ಸ್, ಮೇ ಬಿ ಆಫ್ಟರ್ ಸೆವೆರಲ್ ಥೌಸಂಡ್ಸ್ ಆಫ್ ಇಯರ್ಸ್, ಆ ಮರುಭೂಮಿ ಇದ್ದ ಜಾಗದಲ್ಲಿ ಒಂದು ಫಾರೆಸ್ಟ್ ಬಂದಿರ್ಬೋದು. ಹೇಗೆ? ಐ ಹ್ಯಾವ್ ಬೀನ್ ಟೆಲ್ಲಿಂಗ್ ಯು ಸಿನ್ಸ್ this ecological chapters, in all these chapters of ecology, the nature is never constant. It changes, right? So it continuously changes, and this change, however slow it is going to bring a drastic change if you look at for a long duration of time. And this drastic change involves the replacement of one type of organism with another. Right? So this is what? This replacement of one type of organism with another, replacement of one type of ecosystem with another, right? And changing the whole scenario of that particular ecosystem is what is known as ecological succession, right? So let us understand the definition. Let us look at the definition here. This is the gradual and fairly predictable change in the species composition of a given area. That is what is called as ecological succession. It's a gradual, ಅಂದ್ರೆ ತುಂಬಾ ಸ್ಲೋ ಆಗ್ತಾ ಇರುತ್ತೆ, ಮತ್ತು it is predictable. It is not that we will not know what comes next. It is not like that. It is very fairly predictable, but it is a very slow thing. Like for example, ನೋಡಿ, ಒಂದು ಪಾಂಡ್ ಇದೆ ಅಂತ ಅನ್ಕೊಳ್ಳಿ, right? See, you can tell easily, after thousands of years or after a few hundreds of years, this pond may become a small forest ಅಂತ ನೀವು ಹೇಳ್ಬೋದು. ಹೇಗೆ? Because see, you will see the pond getting submerged, ಅಂದ್ರೆ the ಪಾತ್ರ ಅಂತ ಏನು ಕರಿತೀವಿ, or whatever the area of the pond where the water is stored, it may be reducing year by year. Why? Because the plants growing in that, they die there, animals, they die there, the organic matter increases. ಒಂದು ಪಾಂಡ್ ಇಂದು ಆರ್ಗ್ಯಾನಿಕ್ ಮ್ಯಾಟರ್ ಜಾಸ್ತಿ ಆಗ್ತಾ 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 ಏನಾಗುತ್ತೆ, ಹೂಳು ಅಂತ ಕರಿತೀವಿ, ಕೆರೆಗಳಲ್ಲಿ ಹೂಳು ಎತ್ತೋ ಕೆಲಸ ಅಂತ ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೆ, ಕೇಳಿದ್ದೀರಾ? ವಾಟ್ ಹ್ಯಾಪನ್ಸ್ ಇಫ್ ದೇ ಡು ನಾಟ್ ಡೂ ದಟ್ ವರ್ಕ್? ಅದು ಹಾಗೆ ಬಿಟ್ರೆ ಇಟ್ ಬಿಕಮ್ಸ್ ಫ್ಲಾಟ್ ಲ್ಯಾಂಡ್ ಅಷ್ಟೇ ಅಲ್ಲ, ಇಟ್ ವಿಲ್ ಆಲ್ಸೋ ಪ್ರೊವೈಡ್ ಅ ವೆರಿ ಫರ್ಟೈಲ್ ಸಾಯಿಲ್ ಫಾರ್ ದ ಗ್ರೋತ್ ಆಫ್ ಪ್ಲಾಂಟ್ಸ್. ಫರ್ಟೈಲ್ ಸಾಯಿಲ್ ಇದ್ಮೇಲೆ ಕೇಳಬೇಕಾ? ಡೆಫಿನೆಟ್ಲಿ ಪ್ಲಾಂಟ್ಸ್ ವಿಲ್ ಗ್ರೋ ಇನ್ ನ್ಯೂಮರಸ್ ನಂಬರ್ and it will become a small forest. Is it not predictable change we are observing here in this case? So such changes, andre pond iddadénayitu, ಒಂದು ಫಾರೆಸ್ಟ್ ecosystem ಆಯಿತು. This is what is basically called as what ecological succession, right? So this is one simple example that I am giving you here. So we are going to study similar examples here under this particular concept called ecological succession, right? See, the composition and structure constantly change. The composition and structure of any ecosystem, it keeps on changing constantly with time in response to the various abiotic factors or environmental conditions. Alva? And this itself will be referred to as evolution in the very long term. In fact, this change is orderly and sequential. That is why ಇದು orderly ಮತ್ತು sequential ಆಗಿರೋದ್ರಿಂದ ಮತ್ತು it is coping up with the external conditions of the environment. ಹಾಗಾಗಿ we can say this may be parallel with the changes in the physical environment and also parallel with the course of evolution. ಅಂದ್ರೆ this fairly predictable change that what we are seeing, see, this also makes the organism in a particular habitat to gain or lose certain characteristics. Yake? Because we know that survival of the fittest, andre the organism which can suit to the environment or which can adapt to the environmental conditions best. ಯಾವುದು ಬೆಸ್ಟ್ ಆಗಿ, ಯಾವುದು ತುಂಬ ಎಫಿಷಿಯಂಟ್ ಆಗಿ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಟರ್ನಲ್ ಕಂಡೀಷನ್ಸ್ಗೆ ಹೊಂದ್ಕೊಳ್ಳುತ್ತೋ, ದಟ್ ಈಸ್ ದ ಆರ್ಗ್ಯಾನಿಸಮ್ ವಿಚ್ ಕ್ಯಾನ್ ಸರ್ವೈವ್, ರೈಟ್? ಸರ್ವೈವಲ್ ಆಫ್ ದ ಫಿಟೆಸ್ಟ್. ಸೊ ಆರ್ಗ್ಯಾನಿಸಮ್ಸ್ also keep on changing according to the constantly changing external environmental conditions. Yes or no? And this later on leads to evolution, right? So here when we look at the ecological succession, the entire communities, ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಈಗ ಒಂದು ಎಕ್ಸಾಂಪಲ್ ಕೊಟ್ಟೆ, ಒಂದು ಪಾಂಡ್ ಇತ್ತು, ಪಾಂಡ್ ಇಂದ ಒಂದು ಫಾರೆಸ್ಟ್ ಆಗಬೇಕು ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರೆ ಡೈರೆಕ್ಟ್ ಆಗಿ ಆಗ್ಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ಆಗುದಿಲ್ಲ ಅಲ್ವಾ? ಪಾಂಡ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಏನ್ ಬರಬೇಕು? ಮೊದಲು ಫೈಟೋಪ್ಲಾಂಕ್ಟನ್ಸ್, ತೇಲುವ ಸಸ್ಯಗಳು ಬರಬೇಕು, ಅದರ ನಂತರ ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ಸಣ್ಣ ಸಬ್ಮರ್ಜ್ ಪ್ಲಾಂಟ್ಸ್ ಅಂತ ಕರಿತೀವಿ, ಅಂಡ್ ದೆನ್ ಸ್ಮಾಲ್ ರೂಟೆಡ್ ಪ್ಲಾಂಟ್ಸ್ ಬರಬೇಕು, ಆಮೇಲೆ ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ಬಿಗರ್ ಪ್ಲಾಂಟ್ಸ್ ಬರಬೇಕು, ಬ್ರಯೋಫೈಟ್ಸ್ ಬರಬೇಕು, ದೆನ್ ಲಾಂಗ್ ವೆರಿ ಬಿಗ್ ಆಂಜಿಯೋಸ್ಪರ್ಮ್ಸ್ ವಿಲ್ ಕಮ್. ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಸ್ಟೆಪ್ ಬೈ ಸ್ಟೆಪ್ ಆಗುವಂತಹ ಪ್ರೊಸೆಸ್, right? So all these steps, all these ecological communities which appear step by step in the ecological succession, they are referred to as seers anta kariteve. What are they called as? Seers, right? All these ecological communities which appear in various steps of what? An ecological succession, those are called as seers anta kariteve. And the individual transitional community, so illi seers anta kariyodu, it is a collective word. ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಅಪಿಯರ್ ಆಗ್ತಿರುವಂತಹ ಸ್ಟೆಪ್ ವೈಸ್ ಅಪಿಯರ್ ಆಗ್ತಿರುವಂತಹ ಎಲ್ಲಾ ಕಮ್ಯುನಿಟೀಸ್ಗೆ ನಾವು collectively they are called as seers ಅಂತ ಕರಿತೀವಿ. whereas the individual transitional communities, ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಒಂದರಿಂದ ಇನ್ನೊಂದು ಚೇಂಜ್ ಆಗುವಾಗ ಏನು ಕಮ್ಯುನಿಟಿ ಬರುತ್ತೆ, transitional communities, they are termed as seral stages or seral communities ಅಂತ ಕರಿತೇವೆ. they are termed as what? seral stages or seral communities. I hope you are understanding, right? ಅದೇ ಪಾಂಡ್ ಎಕೋಸಿಸ್ಟಮ್ ಎಕ್ಸಾಂಪಲ್ ತಗೊಂಡ್ರೆ, ಪಾಂಡ್ ಎಕೋಸಿಸ್ಟಮ್ ನಿಂದ ಫಸ್ಟ್ ಸ್ಟೆಪ್ ಯಾವ್ದು ತಗೊಳ್ಬಹುದು? ಅಪಿಯರೆನ್ಸ್ ಆಫ್ ಫೈಟೋಪ್ಲಾಂಕ್ಟನ್ಸ್. ದಿಸ್ ಇಸ್ ದ ಫಸ್ಟ್ ಸ್ಟೀರಲ್ ಸ್ಟೇಜ್. ದ ಕಮ್ಯುನಿಟಿ ಆಫ್ ದ ಫೈಟೋಪ್ಲಾಂಕ್ಟನ್ಸ್ ಇಸ್ ದ ಫಸ್ಟ್ ಸೀರಲ್ ಸ್ಟೇಜ್ ಆರ್ ಫಸ್ಟ್ ಸೀರಲ್ ಕಮ್ಯುನಿಟಿ ಅಂತ ನಾವು ಕನ್ಸಿಡರ್ ಮಾಡಬಹುದು. ನೆಕ್ಸ್ಟ್ ಯಾವ್ದು ತಗೊಳ್ಬಹುದು? ಮೇ ಬಿ ದ ಅಪಿಯರೆನ್ಸ್ ಆಫ್ ಸಬ್ಮರ್ಜ್ ಪ್ಲಾಂಟ್ಸ್ ಆರ್ ಮೇ ಬಿ ಬ್ರಯೋಫೈಟ್ಸ್ ಅಂತ ತಗೊಳ್ಬಹುದು ಅಲ್ವಾ? ಸೊ ಲೈಕ್ ದಿಸ್ ಇಟ್ ಗೋಸ್ ಆನ್ ಹ್ಯಾವಿಂಗ್ ಡಿಫರೆಂಟ್ ಸೀರಲ್ ಸ್ಟೇಜಸ್ ಆರ್ ಸೀರಲ್ ಕಮ್ಯುನಿಟೀಸ್ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ಬಹುದು, ರೈಟ್? Next one, during succession some species colonize there. ನೋಡಿ, ಒಂದು ಸ್ಪೀಶೀಸ್ ಬಂತು ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರೆ, ಲೈಕ್ ಫಾರ್ ಎಕ್ಸಾಂಪಲ್ ಈಗ ಬ್ರಯೋಫೈಟ್ಸ್ ಅಪಿಯರ್ ಆಗಬೇಕು ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರೆ, ಬ್ರಯೋಫೈಟ್ಸ್ ಆರ್ ಮೇ ಬಿ ಆಂಜಿಯೋಸ್ಪರ್ಮ್ಸ್. ಈಗ ಒಂದು ಪಿಸ್ಟಿಯಾ, ಐಕಾರ್ನಿಯಾ ನಿಮಗೆ ಗೊತ್ತಿದೆ. ಈಗ ಒಂದು ಪಾಂಡ್ ನಲ್ಲಿ ಮೊದಲು ಫೈಟೋಪ್ಲಾಂಕ್ಟನ್ಸ್ ಇತ್ತು ಅಂತ ನಾ ಹೇಳಿದೆ. ಫೈಟೋಪ್ಲಾಂಕ್ಟನ್ಸ್ ಅನ್ನು ರೀಪ್ಲೇಸ್ ಮಾಡಿ ಒಂದು ಪಿಸ್ಟಿಯಾ, ಐಕಾರ್ನಿಯಾ, ದೇ ಆರ್ ಆಂಜಿಯೋಸ್ಪರ್ಮ್ಸ್, ಅದು ಬರಬಹುದು. ದೇ ಆರ್ ಸ್ಮಾಲ್ ಸಬ್ಮರ್ಜ್ ಪ್ಲಾಂಟ್ಸ್. ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಒಂದು ಕಮ್ಯುನಿಟಿ ಬರಬೇಕು ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರೆ ದ ಅದರ್ ಕಮ್ಯುನಿಟಿ ಮೇ ಬಿ ಕಂಪ್ಲೀಟ್ಲಿ ವ್ಯಾನಿಶ್ಡ್. Are you not seeing a transformation in the whole of ecosystem there? Right? So one community may coexist, adar jotege irbodu, athwa one community may get lost completely, may become extinct completely in that particular habitat, right? And the other community may keep on growing. That is what this is saying. During succession, some species may colonize in that area and their populations become more and more with time, right? Whereas populations of other species may get declined or maybe completely disappeared with time, right? So like this, the changes, they go on appearing as and when the different serial stages come with a different set of organisms there, right? So these changes finally lead to one stable community. Idu aagtane irudilla alla, it does not keep on changing. I told you, ಒಂದು ಪಾಂಡ್ ಎಕೋಸಿಸ್ಟಮ್ ಇದ್ದದ್ದು ಫೈನಲ್ ಏನಾಗಬಹುದು, ಫಾರೆಸ್ಟ್ ಆಗಬಹುದು. ಫಾರೆಸ್ಟ್ ನಂತರ ಮತ್ತೆ ಮುಂದೆ ಏನಾಗುತ್ತೆ, ಇಟ್ ಮೇ ಬಿಕಮ್ ಈವನ್ ಮೋರ್ ಬಿಗರ್ ಫಾರೆಸ್ಟ್, ರೈಟ್? ಸೊ ಆ ಫಾರೆಸ್ಟ್ ಮತ್ತೆ ಚೇಂಜ್ ಆಗಬೇಕು ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರೆ ಇಟ್ ಈಸ್ ಡಿಫಿಕಲ್ಟ್, ಬಿಕಾಸ್ ಈ ಎಲ್ಲ ಸ್ಟೇಜ್ಗಳನ್ನ, ಈ ಎಲ್ಲ ಟ್ರಾನ್ಸಿಷನಲ್ ಸೀರಿಯಲ್ ಸ್ಟೇಜ್ಗಳನ್ನ ದಾಟ್ಕೊಂಡು ಹೋಗಿ ಒಂದು ಸ್ಟೇಬಲ್ ಕಮ್ಯುನಿಟಿ ಬರುತ್ತೆ, ಅಂಡ್ ದ್ಯಾಟ್ ಈಸ್ ಕಾಲ್ಡ್ ಆಸ್ ಕ್ಲೈಮ್ಯಾಕ್ಸ್ ಕಮ್ಯುನಿಟಿ. So that climax community will be almost in equilibrium with the nature. What is the meaning of in equilibrium with the nature anta helidre enu andre, it will be able to sustain and it will be able to survive to whatever the environmental conditions are there in that geographical area. ಅಲ್ಲಿರುವಂತಹ ಎನ್ವಿರಾನ್ಮೆಂಟಲ್ ಕಂಡೀಷನ್ಸ್ ಏನಿದೆ ಅದನ್ನೆಲ್ಲ ತಡ್ಕೊಂಡು ವಾಸಿಸುವಂತಹ ಕೆಪಾಸಿಟಿ ಆ ಪರ್ಟಿಕ್ಯುಲರ್ ಕ್ಲೈಮ್ಯಾಕ್ಸ್ ಕಮ್ಯುನಿಟಿಯಲ್ಲಿರುವಂತಹ ಜೀವಿಗಳಿಗೆ ಇರುತ್ತೆ. That is why it looks more stable. So it will remain for a very long time. Such a community is called as climax community. These changes finally lead to a community that is in near equilibrium with the environment, and that is what is called as what? Climax community. That's called as climax community. Yes? So like this. Hagadre first community enirbodu. We will talk about it, right? See, these are all the different types of different ideas or different set of information about ecological succession. Ecological succession means this is the definition, you need to note it down. The gradual and fairly predictable change in the species composition of a given area is what is called as ecological succession, right? So this is some general information. Innondu seers bagge kelbahudu. What is seer? What are seers? And the 1 mark question. Athwa serial community. So these are very important 1 mark question. Idu kuda 1 mark important question. Alright. Now, succession. I told you this point. Succession and evolution would have been parallel in process, because evolution anta helidru, it's a gradual change. Succession also leads to a gradual change. Maybe evolution is a longer and a lengthier process. Right? So it takes a very long time, whereas succession anta helidre, it may not be as long as evolution, but definitely succession will exist in parallel with evolution, and succession will contribute to the process of evolution in a way, right? So this is about general information about ecological succession. There are basically 2 different types of ecological successions, right? That means where exactly a succession starts, ಎಲ್ಲಿ ಶುರುವಾಗುತ್ತೆ ಮತ್ತು ಹೇಗೆ ಪ್ರೊಸೀಡ್ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ ಅದು ecological succession ಅನ್ನೋದ್ರ ಬೇಸಿಸ್ ಮೇಲೆ. We have got 2 different types of ecological successions here. One is called as primary succession, and obviously the second one will be secondary succession. Let us first look at primary succession. ಹಾಗಂದ್ರೆ ಏನು? Let us try to understand. So any succession that starts from completely a bare area, ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಲೈಫೇ ಇಲ್ಲ, ಮೇ ಬಿ ಆ ಸಾಲಿಡ್ ರಾಕ್, ಒಂದು ದೊಡ್ಡ ಕಲ್ಲು ಬಂಡೆ ಇದೆ, ಅದ್ರ ಮೇಲೆ ಲೈಫ್ ಇಲ್ಲವೇ ಇಲ್ಲ, ಇದ್ರವರೆಗೆ ಮೊದಲು ಲೈಫ್ ಇರಲೇ ಇಲ್ಲ ಅಲ್ಲಿ. ಅಂತಹ ಲೈಫ್ಲೆಸ್ ಸಿಚುವೇಶನ್ನಲ್ಲಿ ಫಸ್ಟ್ ಲೈಫ್ ಅಪಿಯರ್ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ. ಸೊ ಅಲ್ಲಿಂದ ಶುರುವಾಗುವಂತಹ ಒಂದು ಸಕ್ಸೆಷನ್ಗೆ ನಾವೇನಂತ ಕರಿತೀವಿ? ಪ್ರೈಮರಿ ಸಕ್ಸೆಷನ್ ಅಂತ ಕರಿತೇವೆ. ಸೊ ದಟ್ ಈಸ್ ವಾಟ್ ವಿ ರೀಡ್ ಹಿಯರ್. ದ ಸಕ್ಸೆಷನ್ ದಟ್ ಸ್ಟಾರ್ಟ್ಸ್ ವೇರ್ ನೋ ಲಿವಿಂಗ್ ಆರ್ಗ್ಯಾನಿಸಮ್ಸ್ ಆರ್ ಬಯೋಟಿಕ್ ಕಮ್ಯುನಿಟೀಸ್ ಆರ್ ದೇರ್, and these could be the areas where no living organisms were ever existed. ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಮೊದಲು ಯಾವತ್ತೂ ಕೂಡ ಲಿವಿಂಗ್ ಆರ್ಗ್ಯಾನಿಸಮ್ಸ್ ಎಕ್ಸಿಸ್ಟೇ ಆಗಿರಲಿಲ್ಲ. ಅಂತಹ ಒಂದು ಏರಿಯಾದ ಮೇಲೆ ಫಸ್ಟ್ ಜೀವಿ ಹುಟ್ಟುಕೊಂಡು ಅಲ್ಲಿಂದ ಬೇರೆ ಬೇರೆ ಜೀವಿಗಳ ಬೇರೆ ಬೇರೆ ಸೀರಿಯಲ್ ಸ್ಟೇಜ್ ಆಗಿ ಒಂದು ಎಕಲಾಜಿಕಲ್ ವಾಟ್ ಈಸ್ ದಟ್ ಸಕ್ಸೆಷನ್ ಪ್ರೊಸೀಡ್ಸ್, ಅಂಡ್ ದಟ್ ಕೈಂಡ್ ಆಫ್ ಎಕಲಾಜಿಕಲ್ ಸಕ್ಸೆಷನ್ ದಟ್ ಈಸ್ ವಾಟ್ ಈಸ್ ಕಾಲ್ಡ್ ಆಸ್ primary succession, right? So what can be the examples for this? Of course, the species first appear on that bare area where there was no life at all. ಮೊದಲು ಲೈಫೇ ಇಲ್ದಿರುವಂತಹ ಜಾಗದಲ್ಲಿ ಫಸ್ಟ್ ಲೈಫ್ ಏನು ಅಪೇರ್ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ, ಅಂತಹ ಒಂದು ಸ್ಪೀಶೀಸ್ಗೆ ನಾವು ಪಯೋನಿಯರ್ ಸ್ಪೀಶೀಸ್ ಅಂತ ಕರಿತೇವೆ. What is pioneer species can be a very important one mark question. The species that invade a bare area are called as pioneer species. So pioneer species can be observed only in primary succession, not in secondary succession. Note this point. Primary succession alli matra ಕಂಡು ಬರುವಂತದ್ದು pioneer species. Pioneer species cannot be present in secondary succession, right? Because secondary succession will not start from completely lifeless area ದಿಂದ ಶುರುವಾಗುವುದಿಲ್ಲ, right? Examples of areas where primary succession can be observed, like maybe a newly cooled lava. ಒಂದು ಜ್ವಾಲಾಮುಖಿ ಸ್ಫೋಟಗೊಂಡು ಅಲ್ಲಿ just cooled lava ಇರಬಹುದು, it will solidify into a rock, right? That may be there, or maybe a bare rock, or newly created pond or reservoir. Freshly created pond ಇರಬಹುದು ಅಥವಾ reservoir ಇರಬಹುದು, ಒಂದು ಸರೋವರ ಇರಬಹುದು, right? So in such cases where there is no life at all, when first life appears, that is what is called pioneer species. And pioneer species ನಿಂದ ಶುರುವಾಗುವಂತಹ succession ಗೆ ನಾವೇನಂತ ಕರೀತೇವೆ, primary succession ಅಂತ ಕರೀತೇವೆ, right? So the establishment of new biotic communities is generally slow, obviously. ಯಾಕೆ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರೆ ನೋಡಿ, ಇಟ್ ಮೇ ಬಿ ದ ಅಕ್ವಾಟಿಕ್ ಎಕೋಸಿಸ್ಟಮ್ ಆರ್ ಇಟ್ ಮೇ ಬಿ ಅ ಸಾಯಿಲ್ ಟೆರೆಸ್ಟ್ರಿಯಲ್ ಎಕೋಸಿಸ್ಟಮ್. ಫಾರ್ ಎಕ್ಸಾಂಪಲ್, ಒಂದು ಬೇರ್ ರಾಕ್ ನ ಮೇಲೆ ಒಂದು ಜೀವಿ ಬರಬೇಕು ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರೆ ಆಬ್ವಿಯಸ್ಲಿ ಇಟ್ ಈಸ್ ಅ ಪ್ಲಾಂಟ್, or maybe plant like organism. The first species that can be pioneer species ಯಾವ್ದಿರಬಹುದು ಅಲ್ಲಿ which can be observed ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರೆ maybe lichens, or maybe small plants or very lesser evolved plants such as algae or bryophytes. ಹೇಗೆ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರೆ, the spores of these organisms, they will be spread in the air, they will be traveling in the air. So, and because this rock surface ಏನಿದೆ, because of the rain ಇರಬಹುದು, or maybe because of the temperature ಇರಬಹುದು, because of the acidic content released by different maybe excreta of different animals ಇರಬಹುದು, some amount of acid will be there. So ಅಷ್ಟೇ acidic content, so for thousands of years ಇದು ಸ್ಲೋ ಪ್ರೊಸೆಸ್ ಆಗಿ because of all these changes what happens, ಆ ರಾಕ್ ಇದ್ದದ್ದು slowly it gets converted into soil, small amount of soil. The conversion of rock into soil is called as weathering of rock ಅಂತ ಕರೀತೇವೆ. It is called as weathering of rock, right? So during this weathering of rock, if by chance the spore of any of these bryophyte or maybe lichens or maybe a fungi ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಬಂದು ಕೂತ್ಕೊಳ್ತು ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರೆ, so it will have moisture there, it will have proper temperature there, it will have soil there. Then what is required? It will start establishing in that particular habitat. For the first time ever, life will be existing there, right? So that species can be called as pioneer species. Yes, but this is a very, very slow process. It may take up to thousands of years. Yes or no? Establishment of a life in an area where there was no life at all. Obviously, it will be a very slow process, right? And also it's a matter of chance factor. So ಯಾಕೆ ತಗೋಬೇಕು ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರೆ ಮಿಲಿಯನ್ಸ್ ಆಫ್ ಇಯರ್ಸ್ ಅಥವಾ ಥೌಸಂಡ್ಸ್ ಆಫ್ ಇಯರ್ಸ್ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರೆ, ಇಟ್ ಈಸ್ ವೆರಿ ಇಂಪಾರ್ಟೆಂಟ್ ಫಾರ್ ದ ಫಾರ್ಮೇಷನ್ ಆಫ್ ಫರ್ಟೈಲ್ ಸಾಯಿಲ್ ಪ್ರೊಡಕ್ಷನ್ ಆಗಬೇಕು ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರೆ ವೆದರಿಂಗ್ ಆಫ್ ರಾಕ್ ಆಗಬೇಕು, ರೈಟ್? ಸೊ ಎಲ್ಲ ಪ್ರೊಸೆಸ್ ಆಗಬೇಕು ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರೆ ಇಟ್ ವಿಲ್ ಟೇಕ್ ಅ ವೆರಿ ಲಾಂಗ್ ಟೈಮ್, ಆಸ್ ಐ ಜಸ್ಟ್ ಟೋಲ್ಡ್ ಯು, ರೈಟ್? So this is about the primary succession. We will study more about the primary succession later, right? Then secondary succession. Let us look into what is called secondary succession. See, secondary succession means it begins in an area where already a life existed. Modlu life ittu, but due to some reason that life is perished off. Maybe a forest was there in an area and whole of that forest is burnt. Because of forest fire irbodu, maybe because of any other reason irbodu, maybe because of the activities of human beings, or maybe naturally, right? Maybe flooded area irbodu, right? Or maybe volcanic eruptions agirbodu, maybe because of any of these reasons, maybe natural or man-made, right? So if any habitat completely gets destroyed with its biota, ಅಲ್ಲಿರುವಂತಹ ಜೀವಿಗಳು ಎಲ್ಲ ನಾಶವಾಗಿ ಹೋದರೆ, once again after a duration of time, once again life starts appearing in that particular area. So this is the life appearing for the second time. It is not for the first time, right? This is appearing for the second time because already life existed there. Right? So this community or this kind of ecological succession which starts in an area where already life existed before, such a succession will be called as secondary succession. So you can read this here. Secondary succession begins in areas where natural biotic communities have been destroyed, maybe like abandoned farmlands irbodu, or maybe burnt or cut forests irbodu, or lands that have been flooded irbodu, ಅಥವಾ volcanic erupted areas irbodu, right? So all these areas are the examples where secondary succession can be found to be observed. So obviously this already life existed anta helidre, maybe soil may be there, or maybe some medium will be there which will definitely help for the next form of life to to appear there. Some soil or sediment is present, and that is why secondary succession will be faster when compared to the primary succession, right? So the first species that is going to appear in the secondary succession cannot be called as pioneer species here, because pioneer species is the one which first appears in a land or in an area where there was no life at all. But illi hagalla, there was life before, yes, and because there was life before, because some remnants are there, because maybe some sediments are there, athwa yavdo ಒಂದು seed bidkondirbodu, yavdo spore bidkondirbodu, right? Because of that, once again the life originates, and this will be a faster process when compared to the primary succession, right? So this is a faster than the primary succession. So apart from secondary succession, general data about succession here, a succession mainly describes about the vegetation, the changes in the plant biota, the changes in the plant communities. Succession ಬಗ್ಗೆ ನಾವು ಮಾತಾಡ್ತಿರ್ಬೇಕಾದ್ರೆ we mainly focus on how the structure of the forest or structure of the different species of plants change ಅಂತ ನಾವು ನೋಡ್ತೀವಿ ಮೊದಲು, right? And of course when plants get changed, when the producers themselves are getting changed or replaced, obviously the other organisms or animals depending upon those plants also change accordingly, right? So that means succession mainly talks about what, mainly describes about what, vegetational changes. That means with respect to the plants, not with respect to animals. But this vegetational change, when it happens, it also eventually causes the changes in the type and composition of animals, and also even the decomposers. Not only animals but also the decomposers, yes. So at any time, nodi, there may be disturbances also. If an ecological succession is happening, maybe there is a disturbance. Like for example, one simple example we can consider here. Ade nan pond ecosystem example in helidde nimage. So pond is slowly getting older, slowly it is going towards the climax community. Which is the climax community? Forest. ಮೊದಲು ಯಾವ್ದು ಬರಬೇಕು, ಫೈಟೋಪ್ಲಾಂಕ್ಟನ್ಸ್ ಬಂತು, ದೆನ್ ದ ಸ್ಮಾಲ್ ಪ್ಲಾಂಟ್ಸ್ ಲೈಕ್ ಪಿಸ್ಟಿಯಾ, ಐಕಾರ್ನಿಯಾ, ದೇ ಸ್ಟಾರ್ಟ್ ಅಪಿಯರಿಂಗ್. At that particular time, if human beings interfere and humans remove all that plants from the water, and they will clear all that silt that was deposited at the floor of the pond, then what will happen? It becomes like a revival of the lake. That means once again the lake will return to the normal condition. ಮೊದಲು ಹೇಗಿತ್ತು ಹಾಗೆ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ ಅಲ್ವಾ? That is what we are seeing here. At any time during the primary succession or secondary succession, if maybe natural or maybe human induced disturbances idre, maybe fire irbodu, deforestation irbodu in case of forest, right? So intha changes idre, this can convert a particular serial stage succession to back to its earlier stage. ಯಾವುದೋ ಒಂದು ಸೀರಿಯಲ್ ಸ್ಟೇಜ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಇದೆ, ಸೊ ಆ ಸೀರಿಯಲ್ ಸ್ಟೇಜ್ ಅನ್ನ ಇಟ್ ವಿಲ್ ಕನ್ವರ್ಟ್ ಇಟ್ ಬ್ಯಾಕ್ ಟು ದ ಪ್ರೀವಿಯಸ್ ಸೀರಿಯಲ್ ಸ್ಟೇಜ್ ಅಲ್ವಾ? ಸೊ ದಟ್ ಮೀನ್ಸ್ ಡಿಸ್ಟರ್ಬೆನ್ಸಸ್, ಡೆಫಿನೆಟ್ಲಿ ಬಿಕಾಸ್ ಆಫ್ ದೀಸ್ ಡಿಸ್ಟರ್ಬೆನ್ಸಸ್ ಎಕಲಾಜಿಕಲ್ ಸಕ್ಸೆಷನ್ ಇಸ್ ಅ ವೆರಿ ಸ್ಲೋ ಪ್ರಾಸೆಸ್. ಡಿಸ್ಟರ್ಬೆನ್ಸಸ್ ಆರ್ ಕ್ವೈಟ್ ಕಾಮನ್, ರೈಟ್? ಸೊ ಡಿಸ್ಟರ್ಬೆನ್ಸಸ್ ಇರೋದ್ರಿಂದಲೇ ಎಕಲಾಜಿಕಲ್ ಸಕ್ಸೆಷನ್ ಏನಾಗುತ್ತೆ, ತುಂಬಾ ಸ್ಲೋ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ. ಇಟ್ಸ್ ಅ ವೆರಿ ಸ್ಲೋ ಪ್ರಾಸೆಸ್, ರೈಟ್? ಸೊ about the hierarch and xerarch succession. So the primary and secondary succession in hierarch and in xerarch, we are going to study them in detail in the next session.